Each passing day is not a harmless loop, it is a time record, where every second you don't move forward is a second you stand with procrastination, accepting a lesser version of yourself. It's not your circumstances, not luck, and certainly not busyness that's holding you back from change. It's you, the one who compromises with things you no longer truly believe in, just to have one more day of false peace. The most dangerous betrayal doesn't come from someone out there. It happens when you turn your back on your own potential, wrap it in a convenient excuse, and push it to tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes, and procrastination, repeated long enough, no longer remains an innocent choice. It becomes your nature. You start living as if you have unlimited time to prepare, not realizing that every wasted second is a silent loss you'll never reclaim. You don't lack time. You lack a strong enough reason to begin. Every excuse like, I'm not ready, I need more data, I'll wait for the right moment, is a form of self-permission to delay. These seemingly rational statements are actually the mind's clever strategy to avoid the discomfort of change. Not because you're weak, but because the human brain instinctively avoids uncertainty. But that is no justification to surrender, because if you don't push yourself forward, no one else will do it for you. There is one truth you need to accept. No one lives your life for you. No one is responsible for the parts of your life that are stagnant. You can blame your job, stress, age, or circumstances, but when all of that fades away, what remains is the question, where are you standing? What are you doing with what you already know is right, but still haven't acted on? The scariest habit isn't smoking, nor is it avoiding exercise. It's getting used to not starting. Once you get comfortable with the thought, I'll do it tomorrow, you're training your brain to accept intentional paralysis. That's why so many people wake up feeling empty. Not because they lack goals, but because they've stopped believing their actions make a difference. Every second you don't use to build yourself is a second someone else is using to get ahead of you. Don't be fooled. Doing nothing is also a choice with consequences. Life has no pause button. While you wait for inspiration, more motivation, or the right moment, time continues to flow like a river that washes away all the chances you didn't dare to take. What's dangerous is when you begin to adapt to stagnation. You live in a comfort zone where everything is predictable, repetitive, and pressure-free, but also progress-free. That place is called fine, good enough, no big deal. And then one day you'll look back and realize you've lived like that for 5 years, 10 years, and left no trace behind. Wake up. You weren't born to spin like a cog in a system. You were born with a unique potential. And every second you let it sleep is a small wound, silently cutting into your self-respect. When did you accept a life safe enough to avoid failure, yet too dull to leave a mark? Success doesn't happen in grand moments. It's built in the seconds when you choose not to give up, not to back down, not to delay. Success begins the moment you refuse one more excuse for why not, and instead start looking for one reason to begin right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need one choice right now. Take action, no matter how small. Send that email you've been avoiding. Write the first line of that dream project. Turn off your phone and sit down for 15 minutes to focus on the one thing you've been dodging. Nothing is too small when it's the first push out of inertia. You won't wait until you feel inspired. You won't just wake up one morning with unshakable discipline. Every sustainable change begins with a cold, hard decision. I will not allow myself to slide any further. No one claps for you when you wake up earlier than yesterday. No one cheers when you refuse to delay by 5 minutes. But those silent moments are what truly redefine who you are becoming. That is the moment you start building a different foundation, the foundation of ownership, awareness, and self-direction. The more you act, the more you rebuild your relationship with yourself. No longer the one who breaks promises in silence. No longer the one who knows too much and does too little, but the one who lives with higher standards, not just in ideas, but in the smallest of actions. The one for whom every passing second declares, I deserve a better version of myself. Don't wait until time takes something precious from you to look back and say, I wish I had started sooner. There is no betrayal more painful than turning your back on the very longing your heart whispers to you every night. Don't betray yourself for one more second. Act now. Because every second you choose to delay is a piece of your soul drained, an opportunity swept away, a better version of you left behind. There is a type of prison with no bars, no chains, no clicking locks. It exists in your mind, built from phrases that sound completely reasonable. I need more time. It's not the right moment. Once things are more stable, I'll start. These words don't scream like failure. Don't accuse like mistakes. They whisper gently. And that's what makes them dangerous. You're not afraid of them. You believe them. You repeat them daily like a self-soothing ritual. Postponing today seems reasonable. But nothing kills potential faster than excessive reasonableness. No barrier is stronger than an excuse that seems right. A wall built from convincing logic stops you from doubting, from questioning, and ultimately from acting. You lock yourself in a world where procrastination isn't a mistake, but a strategy. A world where every dream is suspended in limbo and every action is delayed by a plan that's never quite ready. Your mind isn't foolish. It knows how to defend itself against the fear of change with soft shields. Instead of facing the discomfort of doing something new, it hands you a complete list of reasons to wait just a little longer. And you nod. You accept. You delay once, then twice, and by the 10th time you no longer need justification. You've grown used to it, used to stagnation disguised as thinking it through. Misplaced reasonableness can turn you into the smartest person in a life where nothing ever happens. You know what to do, you know why it matters, but you still stand still, watching the world pass by, telling yourself, I'm waiting for the right time. But the right time is an illusion. It never comes on its own. It only reveals itself once you start acting. Like a door that seems locked, but only needs a gentle push to open. But you don't push because you believe you don't have the key. Pause for a second and look directly at the phrases you keep repeating. I'm not good at that. I don't have enough experience. I need more knowledge. They're not wrong, but they're not entirely true either. The problem isn't that you're not enough, it's that you haven't started from where you are. You keep waiting until you're ready, but ready is a moving target that never settles. Every time you get close, your mind shifts the goalpost a little further. That's why smart people get stuck, not because they lack knowledge, but because of the unrealistic perfection they demand of themselves. They don't fail, they just don't begin. And that kills them more slowly, but more deeply than any failure ever could. If you're living inside that cage of reasons, don't try to smash it all at once. You won't be able to. Start by naming it. Write down the sentences you keep telling yourself. No need to fix them, just observe. I'm tired, so I can't write yet. I need a quieter space to focus. I'll wait until I have someone to do it with. Each line is a brick in the cage you built. And once you see it clearly, you're no longer a trapped bird. You're the one holding the key. And don't try to flip your life upside down in a single day. Just change one response. When your mind tells you, wait until you're ready, you can answer, I'll start, then I'll be ready. When it says it's not the right time, you can reply, that's exactly why I'm starting now. No need to fight back with anger, just replace it with awareness. That's how you break an invisible prison. Not with force, but with clarity. If you need proof, just look back at yourself. How many times have you delayed something because you weren't good enough, only to regret not starting a year later? How many opportunities slipped away while you were preparing? How many promises have you made to yourself, only to quietly break them? You don't need more promises. You need action that doesn't ask permission from your feelings. That is the biggest difference between those who create change and those who only dream of it. Action takers don't wait for inspiration, don't need encouragement, and don't require guarantees of success. They just need one reason they trust, and that doesn't come from complex logic, but from the courage to stop saying someday and start saying right now. If you've been waiting for someone's permission, here it is. You have the right to begin without being perfect. You have the permission to walk forward with fear as long as you don't let fear hold you back. You have the right to take action even when conditions aren't ideal. No one is going to hand you a certificate saying you're ready. You write it yourself with every step you take. His real progress doesn't come from meticulously crafted plans. It comes from a quiet yet firm decision. I will not live in this cage of reasons one more day. And if tomorrow you find yourself about to delay again, look in the mirror and ask, is this the truth or is this a trap dressed in soothing words? Every time you answer that question with action, you snap another invisible bar. You're pulling yourself out of a prison you've lived in so long, it started to feel like home. And you're reminding yourself, I don't need a reason to begin. I only need to begin in order to create the reason. Not every blazing fire starts with an explosion. Sometimes all it takes is a single spark, repeated long enough to burn down an entire forest of stagnation. And in the real world, change doesn't arrive with applause or extraordinary leaps. It comes through the repetition of actions so small that no one notices. But you do, because you're the one holding the hammer. The boulder named procrastination, laziness, lack of motivation, doesn't crack after a single day of intense resolve. It breaks apart piece by piece under the weight of seemingly meaningless decisions. Writing one more line even when tired. Exercising one more minute even when no one is watching. Folding the blanket in the morning even when no one praises you. These acts may not impress others, but inside you, they're forming the first cracks. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to strike every day at the very block standing in your way. And if you don't see results today, it doesn't mean your efforts are meaningless. They're simply accumulating force, like a drop of water falling on stone. No one believes it's strong enough to carve deep, but millions of drops don't argue. They just keep falling. The biggest mistake of those trying to change is demanding immediate results. They want their body to transform after 3 workouts. They want their career to shift after a week of determination. When nothing seems different, they stop. But what they don't know is that precisely when nothing seems to happen, the miracle is unfolding silently. Their actions are breaking through the densest layer of all, self-doubt. Every time you take action without seeing results, you send a new signal to your nervous system. I'm moving. I'm no longer waiting. And after receiving that signal enough times, your brain will no longer resist you as it did before. It will learn a new response. Instead of obstructing, it supports. But that doesn't come from chance or declarations. It only comes from the next hammer blow. Small, simple, repeated. Have you ever seen someone hammering at stone? The first strike does nothing, the 10th still nothing, but on the 300th blow, the first crack appears. Outsiders only see the shattering moment, but the persistent person knows every strike before mattered equally. And so it is with you. No small action is wasted if it moves you along the path you're on. The problem is, you've grown too used to needing to do something big. You've been conditioned by the culture of instant achievement, where only outcomes are celebrated and quiet progress is ignored. But real life doesn't run on trends. It runs on the law of accumulation. Like the Chinese bamboo tree, you see nothing in the first few years. But in the 5th year, it shoots up dozens of meters in a matter of weeks. So were those first 5 years pointless? Or were they the invisible foundation you didn't have the patience to nurture? If you're exhausted from taking action without seeing progress, remember, what you're doing isn't to get results immediately. It's to change the identity deep within you. Every time you choose action over delay, you are adjusting your subconscious operating system. You're telling yourself, I am disciplined, I keep my word. And that is the kind of person success always finds. Maybe today you only walked for 10 minutes instead of scrolling through your phone. Only drank an extra glass of water instead of a third coffee. Only wrote 3 lines of ideas instead of a full chapter. But those small acts, sustained long enough, will reshape your entire lifestyle. No revolution required, just consistent hammer blows every day. Keep striking. Small actions don't just produce results, they generate momentum. Once you have momentum, you no longer struggle to start. You begin to feel, since I've started, I might as well keep going. That's the law of inner force. No one focuses for 8 hours without first starting with 8 minutes. No one runs a marathon without first walking 1 loop around the park. Endurance doesn't appear naturally. It's forged through persistence in the unnoticed. And most importantly, small actions are living proof that you're regaining control over your life. Because the greatest difference between the one who acts and the one who only dreams isn't in the goals they write, but in the decisions they make when no one is watching. The one who acts doesn't wait for perfection, doesn't need inspiration, doesn't wait for conditions to be ideal. They just need one simple task to begin, and they do it without negotiation. Never underestimate the power of something that seems like nothing. You don't know which strike will finally crack the rock, but you do know one thing for sure. If you stop, there will be no crack at all. Action, however small, is the only way forward, without needing to understand everything right away. So, choose one thing, just one that you can do right after reading this section. One small action, unseen, unrewarded, and without immediate results. Then tomorrow repeat it. The day after do it again. And one day you'll find yourself in a big moment, looking back and realizing everything began with a single hammer blow you nearly overlooked. It's not cold, not thorny. It doesn't threaten you with failure. On the contrary, it's soft, cozy, and pleasant. It doesn't scare you. It makes you stop questioning. That is the comfort zone. The most intricately designed velvet trap to keep you still while the world keeps moving. Because not everyone is destroyed by tragedy. Many are eroded, bit by bit, by an excess of stability. The comfort zone doesn't attack you, it soothes you. It doesn't block your success, it's just comfortable enough to make you stop caring. You begin to call stagnation stability. Call repetition being okay, call lack of motivation just needing a bit more rest. Everything sounds reasonable. Nothing feels dangerous. But that's exactly why it silently kills your ambition. You don't fall. You simply stop moving forward. What's frightening is that the comfort zone has no clear boundaries, no fences, no warning signs. Just the repetition of habit without direction. Each day passes in a state of just enough. Enough to live, enough to not get criticized. And with each passing day, you trade your inner vitality for the illusion of outer safety. But in truth, you're living inside a beautiful cage with the door wide open. You've just stopped wanting to step out. Mental paralysis doesn't come from disaster. It comes from days that are too alike. Waking up, working, replying to messages, scrolling through your phone, watching something digestible, then going to bed. Day after day, with no highlights, no bold decisions, no moment of discomfort to remind you that you're still growing. And then you tell yourself, this is just life. No, it used to be life, but you've let it stay that way for too long. Someone once said, the comfort zone is where dreams quietly die. No one hears them scream. They don't resist. They simply fade, disappear from sight, then from memory. By the time you look back, you no longer remember what you once wanted, what ambitions you had, what promises you made to yourself. You're left with a hollow version of yourself, living on schedule, on time, fulfilling roles, but no longer moving toward anything worth living for. The feeling of safety has never been the issue, but imprisoning yourself in safety is, because no one ever grows in a state of constant indulgence. You can't mature if you've never allowed yourself to feel unsteady. And it's precisely out of fear of risk that you choose to stay. But what you don't realize is, staying is also a risk. The risk of losing yourself. No one is stronger than the person who dares to step out of comfort without any guarantees. No one truly lives by repeating what's familiar. Because every miracle lives just beyond the edge of what feels easy. You don't need to abandon everything, but you do need one counterintuitive act a day. A call you've been avoiding, a decision you've been postponing, a habit you know must change but keep saying tomorrow. Have you ever asked yourself what would happen if I just stepped out a little? Not to change your entire life, it's to do something you've been afraid of. Maybe it's saying no when you usually nod. Maybe it's speaking up even though your heart races. Maybe it's trying, even if you know it'll be awkward. Because in those very moments where you do the unfamiliar, that's when you feel truly alive. You stop living by a safe script and begin rewriting it line by line. And the magic is, you don't have to be fearless. You just need to be brave for the first 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds to send that message, to open that door, to say what you've never dared to say. After that, momentum will carry you forward. But if you don't act, the comfort zone will pull you back. Gently, reasonably, and powerfully. Look it in the eye. Artificial peace won't save you from the sinking feeling of reliving the 5th or 10th year of a life you've never truly lived. Don't let the familiar trap you through habit. Lean toward the uncertain. Take a step, even half a step, toward what you've never dared to try. Not to prove anything, but to awaken the feeling that you're still alive. The longer you delay stepping out, the thicker the cocoon of safety becomes. Once you're too comfortable, even a gentle breeze starts to scare you. But when you learn to embrace disruption, you'll realize it's not hardship that's holding you back. It's your mind, long accustomed to avoidance. The question isn't, am I ready enough? The real question is, am I brave enough to act even when I'm not ready? Growth doesn't wait for you to feel okay. It demands you act right in the middle of the trembling. Don't search for the safe enough moment to change. Create it through your first risky step. And when you do that every day, even in small ways, you're redrawing the boundaries of your comfort zone. It's no longer a cage, but a launch pad. No longer the end, but the beginning. Failure is not your enemy, but how you react to failure can become your sentence. People don't fall because of mistakes. They fall because they choose to see failure as proof that they're not good enough instead of treating it as a map pointing to a better direction. Failing the right way doesn't push you backward. It pushes you into your true orbit, where you no longer strive to appear perfect, but begin learning to grow. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of being seen when they fail. They fear the doubtful looks, the sarcastic questions, the whispered gossip, and because they fear judgment, they don't dare to try. What they don't realize is, every time they avoid failure, they step further away from their greater potential. No one steps out of their comfort zone without stumbling, and no one ever builds anything meaningful while being afraid of looking foolish. You've had ideas rejected, conversations that didn't go as planned, a product launch that no one noticed. But those missteps didn't destroy you. What destroys you is when you start believing, maybe this isn't for me. Wrong. You just haven't endured long enough to learn one more time. Because what defines you is not the fall, but the way you rise after. And if you rise the right way, you walk forward not with wounded pride, but with a deeper understanding of yourself. James Dyson, the inventor of the famous bagless vacuum cleaner, failed more than 5,000 times before succeeding. 5,000 failed attempts to find one that worked. But he didn't call it failure. He called it data. Each wrong attempt didn't make him give up. It helped him eliminate one ineffective option. And that's the difference between someone who fails the right way and someone who fails without learning. If you're repeating the same mistake and calling it fate, you haven't failed the right way. If you make a mistake and then punish yourself with prolonged guilt, you haven't failed the right way. Failing the right way means you dare to face the result. Separate yourself from the emotion and ask, what can I learn from this? It's not about denying the mistake. It's about turning the mistake into fuel. No one enjoys being rejected. No one is thrilled to be criticized. But if you let short-term emotion paralyze your long-term journey, you're the one cutting the cord leading you to where you need to go. See failure as a mirror, not to reflect how terrible you are, but to show you what's misaligned. A weak presentation doesn't mean you're useless. It means you need to clarify your message. A blog post that no one reads doesn't mean you lack value. It means you need to learn how to deliver better. Every piece of feedback has value if you're willing to listen without getting defensive. Failing the right way is a skill. You must train it like a muscle. And like bodybuilding, it hurts at first, it's hard, you'll want to quit. But with every time you endure, you build a stronger core. The fragile ego gets worn down, revealing a more resilient version of you, and that part of you is what will take you further. You can start by documenting each failure like a strategic report. What did I do well? What could I improve? If I repeat this, what would I change? No need to dramatize your emotions. Just be clear. When you view failure analytically, it loses its power to manipulate you. You're no longer the reactor, you become the director. Build yourself a failure museum. Record every stumble, every rejection, every awkward moment. But instead of hiding them in shame, place them next to the lesson they taught you. One day you'll look back and realize something strange. It was those very falls that laid the foundation of who you've become. Not because they were pleasant, but because you refused to let them go to waste. More importantly, you must understand this: failure does not define you. Giving up after failure is what shapes your fate. Those who fail the right way are not immune to pain. They still hurt, but they don't let that pain dictate their actions. They turn pain into insight and insight into action. That's why they go further, not because they're more talented, but because they learn faster. If you're facing a recent failure, don't avoid it. Don't try to gloss over it. Sit down, face it, write it out, analyze it, and then, most importantly, try again, but differently. Because every time you return with a sharper version of yourself, you don't just get closer to the result, you transform yourself. You're no longer repeating, you're refining. Finally, remember something they never taught you in school. Failure is not a test, it's a kind of map. If you learn how to read it, it will take you where you need to go. If you quit halfway, it will forever remain a dead end. Failing the right way is structured courage. Not an impulsive reaction, but a steady mindset. I'm not giving up. I'm evolving. The future is not built on bold declarations. It is quietly crafted every single day through the series of behaviors you repeat in silence, whether you're aware of them or not. It's not your intentions, but your habits. Not the grand plans you promise at the start of the month, but the actions you take in the first 5 minutes after waking up. You say you want to change, yet the next morning your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes even open. You say you want to be more focused, yet by midday you've drifted into mindless videos, wondering why time always slips away. You say you want to live with purpose, yet hour after hour you keep replaying the same old patterns as if you were programmed to do so. The future doesn't wait for you to finish writing the perfect plan. It is shaped by how you're living today. Habits are the quietest yet most accurate declarations of who you are. You might call yourself disciplined, but if you negotiate with your alarm clock every morning, the truth will answer for you. You might believe you're a lifelong learner, but if a week passes without opening a single book, it's your habits, not your identity statements, that narrate the path you're on. Here's the thing, most of the habits that shape you happen unconsciously. You don't procrastinate on purpose. You're just doing what your body is used to. You don't intentionally waste time. You simply repeat old actions without reevaluation. That's why change doesn't come from temporary motivation. It comes from reconstructing your daily structure, detail by detail. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: if you continue with your current habits, you already have a fairly accurate prediction of where you'll be in 1 year, 3 years, even 10. No fortune telling required. Just closely examine one day of your life and multiply it. Every repeated sequence of behavior is an equation, and the result of that equation isn't a mystery. It's simply waiting for you to calculate it. So, instead of asking, who do I want to become? Ask, are my habits today bringing me closer to that? If the answer is no, don't blame time, society, or luck. Reevaluate how you begin and end your day. You don't need to overhaul your entire life to change. You just need to choose a different starting point. Look at the first 30 minutes after you wake up, because that's not just the start of your day. It's the start of your brain, your energy, and your awareness. If you spend that time consuming negative news, falling into distraction, and engaging in passive behaviors, you're programming yourself for chaos from the outset. But if you dedicate just 10 minutes to your breath, natural light, or handwriting a single line, you're sending a signal: I am intentional. I choose to begin with purpose. Simplify everything. You don't need 10 habits at once. You don't need a picture-perfect morning like in the books. All you need is one small, intentional act, repeated daily. For example, don't pick up your phone until after brushing your teeth, or drink a glass of water before turning on your computer. These seemingly minor things are anchors that pull you out of the current of your old unconscious flow. What you need is not more motivation. You need a system. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes. A system is structure. It stays, guiding you even when you're not inspired. Write down the sequence of actions you want to repeat every morning and evening, not to remember, but to commit. When a habit is written down, it's no longer vague. It becomes a contract. Also, don't blindly copy someone else's habits. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. if your biological rhythm functions better at 7, but you do need a stable rhythm so your mind isn't forced to renegotiate the day from scratch. Create a ritual that opens and closes your day, a cue that tells your brain, this is when I lead, not just react. The more you simplify your system, the more energy you'll have to take real action. Remember, habits don't need to be flashy to be effective. They only need to be consistent. One small act, repeated long enough, will overpower any grand intention that's never begun. Someone once said, you don't elevate your life through grand milestones. You elevate it by living each day the way the person you want to become would live. That's the essence of all sustainable change. No declarations, no performance, just day by day, living as if you already believe in the new self that is forming within you. Look at today. Every action, every choice, every moment of pause. Are they leading you where you want to go? If not, you can begin adjusting starting tomorrow morning. You don't have to change the world. You only need to change the sequence you're repeating within yourself. Because in the end, the future doesn't depend on what you dream. It depends on what you do consistently. And every habit, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you are becoming. Your mind is a powerful tool, but like any tool, it can backfire if you don't know how to operate it. You assume that everything you're feeling, every voice echoing in your head is the truth. But truth doesn't shout like that. Truth is often quiet. What you're hearing every day: I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, I can't, is just the echo of outdated thought patterns repeated so often that you've mistaken them for your nature. The mind is better at fabricating stories than you think. It will predict negative outcomes before you even begin. It will wrap you in fear the moment you consider doing something different. And, the most dangerous part, it will use your own voice to say the things that make you small. You're not hearing someone else criticize you, you're hearing yourself. And that's why you're more likely to believe it, accept it, and give up. Be cautious with the most familiar whispers in your mind. Not every voice deserves your trust. Many of them aren't even yours. They're remnants of past criticism, of unhealed emotional wounds, of failures you never revisited with clarity. Over time, they've formed a hidden operating system, one where every decision is filtered through fear and limitation. You've thought, I'm not cut out for this, but is that the truth, or is it the voice of your fear of rejection? You've told yourself, I don't deserve that opportunity, but is that reason, or just a memory of one failure that made you withdraw permanently? So many limiting beliefs sound reasonable only because they've been there too long. The bad news is your mind doesn't need to be right to survive. It only needs to be familiar. And if you've grown used to a negative belief system, those very false thoughts become your comfort zone. You feel safe putting yourself down. You feel relieved avoiding new things, because there, you don't have to face risk. But you also never truly feel alive. The good news is you can start over. Not from circumstances, but from the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, I can't, ask, if I try just a small part, what might happen? Instead of repeating, I'm not good enough, adjust it to, I'm learning how to be better. The mind is easily tricked, so learn to trick it in your favor. One powerful method is mental distancing, talking to yourself in the third person. Not, I'm overwhelmed, but Lynn is feeling pressured. What does Lynn need to feel grounded again? When you step out of the role of someone being swept away by emotion, you regain the role of observer, the one who can choose how to respond rather than being carried off. And in that distance, you begin to see clearly. Not every emotion is worth trusting. Not every thought deserves to be treated as destiny. Psychological science has proven linguistic distance creates emotional distance. When you speak to yourself with separation, the intensity of negativity decreases. You're no longer fused with fear. You begin to discern what's true and what's merely a reaction. And once you see clearly, you can choose again. That's it. Don't expect your limiting thoughts to disappear overnight. They'll return, but this time you won't receive them as commands. You'll learn to recognize and respond. When your mind says, you'll mess it all up, you can answer, maybe, but I'll try anyway. When it whispers, no one cares, you can quietly say, and I don't need them to care in order to keep moving forward. Power doesn't come from silencing the negative voices. It comes from no longer obeying them. Ask yourself this, if someone else said to you all the things you say to yourself, would you let them continue? Would you keep a friend who constantly belittled you, doubted you, made you feel small every day? If not, then why do you keep yourself in such an abusive inner dialogue? The answer is not to deny all negative emotions, but to train your response. See them like clouds passing by. They come, they go, but you are the sky. You don't need to become a storm just because a gray cloud shows up. Every time you recognize a limiting thought and refuse to obey it, you expand the borders of your inner freedom. You reclaim control from a subconscious system that has manipulated your behavior for years. And that is the deepest foundation for lasting change. You're not just changing what you do, you're rewriting how you see yourself. So next time your mind starts playing those old tracks, pause, take a deep breath, look directly at the words forming inside you, and gently say to yourself, that's just a thought. It's not the truth. When you can say that with calm conviction, you're no longer a victim of your own mind. You've become the leader of your life, from within. Emotions are not a compass. They are waves, sometimes rising, sometimes falling. If you let emotions guide your actions, you'll live like a sailless boat in the ocean, drifting here and there with no destination, no control. What's frightening isn't that emotions arise, but that you let them override your plans. You say you have goals, but the next morning when laziness rolls in, you postpone. By afternoon, when you feel tired, you pull back. Then at the end of the day, you tell yourself, I didn't manage today, but I'll try harder tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and the script repeats. It's not ability that you lack. You're simply letting fleeting emotions interfere with long-term discipline. And emotions, as you know, are unstable. A brilliant idea at 10 a.m. can be completely extinguished by a draining phone call at 3 p.m. A glowing resolve on Sunday evening can vanish by Monday morning just because it's raining. If you don't separate emotion from action, you'll spend your life stuck in the cycle of wanting to do but not doing. Emotions are data, not directives. You should listen but not obey. Ask anyone who has steadily built something meaningful, a business, a body, a skill, a relationship, and they'll tell you this: there are hundreds of days they didn't feel like continuing, but they did anyway. Because they didn't act based on mood, they acted based on plan. Success is the outcome of repeating the right action, regardless of temporary feelings. No one wakes up early every morning because they always feel motivated. No one writes daily because they always feel inspired. But they still sit down, still write, still work. And that is precisely why they become different. While others wait for inspiration, they produce results. Imagine this: if you only work when you feel like it, how many times a week do you truly make progress? And if negative emotions keep recurring, will you ever wait long enough for a peaceful day to act? Probably not. That's why the solution doesn't lie in controlling emotions, but in learning not to let emotions control actions. Let's return to the core. A plan is a commitment you made when your mind was clear, your heart rational, and your vision sharp. Emotions are fleeting states, so who deserves to be followed? A moment of fatigue, or a blueprint you once trusted? You need to learn to shut the inner door during critical moments. When the alarm rings, don't negotiate. When your scheduled workout time arrives, don't renegotiate. When it's time to get to work, don't sit around analyzing whether you're in the mood. Discipline begins by shortening the time gap between I should do it and I'm doing it. The longer the gap, the higher the chance emotion pulls you off course. If you often find mood disrupting your efforts, use this strategy. Break your plan down until it becomes undeniable. Don't aim to write a full chapter. Just open your laptop and write 3 sentences. Don't try to work out for an hour. Just put on your workout clothes and step outside your room. These simple warm-up steps are the most effective way to push past the initial resistance of emotion. Once you begin, you gain momentum. And momentum, not motivation, is what determines how far you'll go. Don't confuse discipline with coldness. Discipline doesn't strip you of emotion. It simply puts emotion in its proper place. Picture yourself as a conductor. Emotions are the instruments, the plan is the score. If you only listen to the drums, the orchestra becomes chaos, but if you guide each section by the written score, everything becomes a symphony. That's your role, to coordinate, not surrender. Here's a simple but powerful tip. Write down your daily commitment every morning, brief, clear, achievable. For example, I will exercise for 15 minutes. I will complete 1 page of my report. I won't browse social media before 11 a.m. Then sign your name below it as a contract with yourself. This isn't a game. It's how you declare, I choose to live by a system, not by mood. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. If you miss 1 day, don't miss 2. If you fall off the plan, don't fall off your identity. Come back. Keep going. What matters isn't that you never waver, but that you know how to return to your path as soon as possible. And if you've ever wondered why you know what to do but still don't do it, here's your answer. You're living by emotion, not by design. If you want different results, change how you live. You don't need much, just one principle. Obey the plan, not the emotion. Nothing kills confidence faster than constantly looking at someone else's life and using it to measure your own worth. You start the day intending to write, to exercise, to learn something new. But just a few minutes of scrolling through social media, seeing someone who's already successful, who's reached major milestones, who's living the dream life, and suddenly all your intentions feel small. And so you hesitate, not because you're inadequate, but because you just forgot who you are. Comparison is the quickest way to lose your personal direction. It doesn't just make you feel inferior. Worse, it makes you abandon your own path to chase a route that doesn't belong to you. You intended to learn drawing because you love it, but then you see a friend making money in finance. You change direction. You wanted to start a small business, but then someone else just raised millions in funding for their startup. You waver. Everything you're doing starts to feel worthless, not because it's wrong, but because it's not as flashy as someone else's journey. But you weren't born to become a better version of someone else. You're here to become a truer version of yourself. And that cannot be measured by anyone else's standards. You don't need to move as fast as they do, speak as eloquently as they do, or have a dazzling career like theirs. You just need the clarity not to abandon your own process every time you see the spotlight where someone else is standing. You know what's most ironic? Many of the people you compare yourself to, they're also looking elsewhere, comparing themselves to someone else. That loop never ends unless someone dares to say, enough. When you stop comparing, you don't become indifferent. You become focused. And in a world filled with noise, focus is the privilege of those who know where they're headed. Remember, when you see someone doing well, you're only seeing the surface, the results, the highlight moments, a few numbers, a few curated images. You don't see their sleepless nights, their confusion, the wounds they hide. And if you compare your entire journey to a short highlight reel of theirs, you will always lose. But the problem isn't you. The problem is a faulty frame of reference. True success isn't about surpassing others. It's about becoming more aligned each day with the person you're building yourself into. You don't have to prove anything to the world. You only need to answer one question every night. What did I do today to get closer to a better version of myself? If you can answer that, then you're winning quietly but surely. Start collecting personal evidence of your progress. Every day, write down one thing you did well. Maybe you declined a meaningless conversation. Maybe you didn't procrastinate like yesterday. Maybe you learned something new. These small wins don't make noise, but they accumulate into internal proof, the kind that eliminates the need for external validation to feel valuable. You can't stop the feeling of comparison from arising, but you can stop it as soon as it starts draining your motivation. When you see someone achieve something, instead of shrinking, turn it into inspiration. Tell yourself if they did it, then it's possible for me in my own way, and then return to your unfinished task. Comparison only becomes toxic when it makes you stop. If you keep going, it becomes fuel. A practical way to break the habit of comparison is to limit your exposure to other people's lives. Spend less time scrolling and more time doing what you know matters. Instead of watching 10 motivational videos, spend 20 minutes writing in your journal. Instead of reading 5 more success stories, write down 3 goals you're actively working on. Look outward less, turn inward more. In the end, you don't need to become an icon. You need to become someone you can respect. And that comes from living fully within your own process, even if it's not glamorous, not impressive, not praised by anyone. When you stop living for others' gaze, you finally take ownership of your life. No one is like anyone else. And that very truth is what makes each of us necessary. Don't let someone else's light dim the one you carry within. Adjust your course if needed. But don't abandon your entire path just because someone else is moving faster. Because for all you know, you may be on a completely different road where the destination isn't measured by speed, but by steadiness. You don't need superpowers to change a person. You just need to change the environment around them. You could be intelligent, have clear goals, and possess strong inner drive, but if you live every day in a negative space, talk to people who don't believe in growth, and constantly consume content that erodes your motivation and self-worth, eventually you'll start to doubt yourself, not because you're weak, but because negativity is contagious. Environment is not scenery. Environment is the psychological ecosystem you live in every day. It's the conversations you have most often. It's how people around you react when you put in effort. It's the small comments you hear repeatedly until you start to believe they're true. They tell you you're dreaming too big, and you begin to second guess. They say, be more realistic, and you hesitate. No blow hits harder than the small, repeated words from those closest to you. The question isn't whether the environment affects you. It's, is it lifting you up or pulling you down? Every person around you is silently casting you into a role, the one who tries, the one who's naive, or the one who will give up soon. And you'd be surprised how often the people closest to you unintentionally play the role of making you doubt yourself the most. Not everyone wants you to shine. Some care for you, but only if you stay where you are. Some support you, as long as you don't outpace them. Some are quick to advise you to play it safe, not because they're bad people, but because they gave up on their own dreams long ago and can't bear to watch you continue chasing yours. Their fear becomes advice, and if you're not careful, you'll mistake their fear for your logic. No one lives in isolation. We absorb energy the way trees absorb light. The more time you spend around positive, honest, and kind people, the more elevated you feel. Conversely, if you're surrounded by complainers, blamers, and people who see everything through a pessimistic lens, you'll feel your spark dimming over time. There is no neutrality in your environment. It's either fuel or poison. You can't choose where you were born, but you can absolutely choose who influences you from this day forward. Try a simple exercise. List the 3 people you've spoken with most often in the past week. Next to each name, write down how you usually feel after talking to them. Uplifted or drained, motivated or inadequate, heard or dismissed. You'll see a clearer picture than you expect. Environment isn't just people, it's also the information you take in daily. What do you see when you open social media? Inspiring stories or meaningless drama? What podcasts do you listen to? What videos do you watch? These things are slowly reprogramming your brain. It's all nutrition, either nourishing or toxic, and you are the one who bears the consequences of that mental diet. You need to build a support ecosystem. Not a perfect world, but a space clean enough for you to breathe deeply and think big. Intentionally seek out people who are on their way up, even if they're not famous. Talk to those with strong inner lives. They don't need to be loud. Invest in relationships that don't just make you laugh, but make you think. If you don't yet have an ideal environment, don't wait for one to appear. Start with a quiet corner each day where you can read, write, and think. Build a kind digital space. Remove toxic content. Follow intentional sources. Set time limits for social media. Don't underestimate this. Your outer environment is a gradual reflection of your inner one, and vice versa. More importantly, don't become someone who drags others down. Become the kind of person you wish you had in your life. Listen without judgment. Give feedback without belittling. Inspire without imposing. When you start becoming the one who lifts others, you naturally attract people like you, and a positive ripple effect begins to take shape. The right environment won't transform you overnight, but it will quietly recalibrate your inner compass each day. It will make you think differently, see differently, act differently, and ultimately become someone different. Don't underestimate the power of the space you live in. It's not as silent as you think. It's telling you something every single day. The question is, are you listening to the right things? Be mindful. Be selective. Build an environment that matches the greatness you are striving to become. Because if you don't, the default environment will slowly pull you back to the place where you once doubted yourself, once delayed your dreams, once stopped believing that you could go further. You are not just the result of what you do, you are also the product of what you continuously absorb. Every piece of information you read, every conversation you engage in, every image you allow into your mind. Your brain has no built-in filter for quality. It receives, processes, and stores. What you call thinking, feeling, or perspective is in fact a faithful reflection of the informational environment you consume every day. Everything you come into contact with is nutrition, either nourishing you or depleting you. An inspiring article can lift you up for an entire day. A single negative comment can drag you down in seconds. A useful video can ignite your sense of direction. A string of meaningless images can distract you from the path you're walking. And the most dangerous part is, you don't even realize this process is happening. Your consumption habits silently reprogram your inner belief system. Each time you scroll past an article saying success is just luck, life is inherently unfair, or someone like you can't make it, your brain takes note. It doesn't resist, it stores. And when you face a situation that requires a decision, those negative bits of data become the subconscious foundation for your hesitation. You're not lacking ability, you're lacking a healthy information ecosystem. Take a look at what you fed your brain today. Did you start your morning with negative news or with a few pages of an inspiring book? Did you spend time listening to a grounded podcast or get swept up in pointless arguments? Have you been selective about who you listen to, who you believe, who you allow to influence you? These seemingly minor things are weaving the fabric of your thinking. You can't become strong if you read content every day that makes excuses for weakness. You can't maintain discipline if you're surrounded by models of procrastination. And you can't keep a clear mind if you're constantly consuming mental junk food wrapped in flashy packaging. What you feed your mind matters far more than you think, because it doesn't just affect who you are today, it quietly shapes who you'll be 5 years from now. If you find yourself feeling discouraged, lost, or doubting yourself, don't be too quick to blame your willpower. First, check the mental diet you're on. What voices are you allowing to redefine your identity? What lines of thinking are you placing your trust in? And are you draining your precious energy on content that wears you down without you even realizing it? It's time to reset your thinking nutrition. Start with simple choices. Read things that lift you. Watch content that makes you reflect. Listen to people who actually live the values you aspire to. Create a mental menu that's healthy. Keep a good book by your bedside. Subscribe to a few high-quality podcasts. Curate a YouTube list with genuinely inspiring creators, not just attention seekers. You don't have to cut off the entire outside world, but you do need to actively filter. Every time you read something meaningless, you've missed the chance to read something worthwhile. Every minute lost in gossip and drama shortens the time you could have used to build yourself. Remember, you only get 24 hours in a day, and your mind cannot hold the whole world. It can only hold what you prioritize. How you consume isn't just about information, it's also about energy. Talk to someone who constantly complains and you'll feel drained. Talk to someone with strong inner clarity and you'll feel like becoming better. Every conversation is a psychological transaction. And you need to start asking, what kind of energy am I receiving from this person and who am I becoming when I'm around them? You may not be able to control every part of your environment, but you always control the filter at your gate. And when you begin to consume quality input, you'll notice a quiet but profound shift. You no longer feel lost because your thinking is clearer. You no longer feel dragged down because you're no longer absorbing low energy signals. And you no longer compare yourself to others because you're too busy developing yourself. We live in an era where information is an asset. But only when you select the right assets can you truly enrich your mind. Think like a strategic investor. Only consume what helps you grow and stay away from anything that erodes your confidence. Because in the end, you don't just become who you want to be, you become the result of what you consume every single day. Waiting for inspiration before taking action is the perfect recipe for procrastination. If you only work when you feel like it, you've already failed before starting, because inspiration is unreliable. It arrives like the wind and leaves like mist. No one builds a solid life on the fragile foundation of fluctuating emotions. Those who achieve great things aren't the ones constantly filled with motivation. They're the ones who act even when they feel nothing at all. Motivation is the result, not the cause. You act first and inspiration follows. Think back to the last time you didn't want to exercise, but after a few minutes of warming up, you found yourself able to continue. Or the time you didn't want to write, but once your fingers touched the keyboard, the ideas began to flow. Your body doesn't need emotional permission to begin. It needs a decisive signal that says it's time to act. The brain doesn't respond to vague ideas like, I should do this or I'll do it tomorrow. It responds to specific habits, clear signals, and relentless repetition. If you're still waiting for the day you'll wake up and suddenly feel motivated, that day will never come. What will arrive instead are more sophisticated excuses and a faster decline in your ability to keep promises to yourself. You must learn to act as if you are already disciplined. Not pretend, but reprogram yourself with one simple rule. Act first, feelings follow. People with consistency aren't strong because they always feel like it, but because they understand this truth. Sometimes the right thing is uncomfortable, but it must still be done. That's why they keep going. No emotional support required, no permission needed from anyone. The mindset of waiting for motivation creates a dangerous dependency. You'll only begin when your mood is right, when conditions are perfect, when your spirit feels ready. But you know what? That waiting keeps you trapped in a vicious cycle. The more you wait, the more rhythm you lose. The more rhythm you lose, the harder it is to start. And then you start believing that you're someone who lacks motivation, when in truth, you just lack the habit of action without emotion. Here's the harsh truth. This world doesn't reward potential. It rewards consistent action. And consistent action doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from systems. You need to schedule things, not expect them. You need to set fixed times, not wait for energy to arrive. You must treat small tasks like doing the dishes, writing a paragraph, or reading 10 pages as non-negotiable rituals, not mood-dependent options. Start small. Don't wait for perfection. As long as you show up every day on time, on task, even just for 10 minutes of focused effort, you are rewiring your brain. You are telling it, here. Discipline is the default. And over time, what once felt hard becomes automatic. Consistency doesn't need applause. It only needs to be uncompromisingly sustained. You don't wait for inspiration to brush your teeth because you understand its importance. So why wait for inspiration to write a book chapter, to learn a new skill, to exercise, or to speak kindly? The important things don't need emotional support. They only need you to commit to doing them, regardless of how you feel. Every consistent action is a declaration, I no longer let emotions dictate my schedule. When you begin acting according to your plan, not your mood, you'll discover a surprising truth. Motivation is not something you search for. It's the outcome of repeated presence. The more you do, the more energy you have. The more you delay, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. Don't confuse genuine fatigue with procrastination in disguise. Sometimes you truly need rest. But most of the time, all you need is to begin the first 5 minutes, because after that, everything else kicks in naturally. And if you maintain that rhythm for enough days, you won't need discipline anymore. You'll have a new identity, someone who does the right thing, even when they don't feel like it. You are not someone who lacks motivation. You are someone who hasn't yet been trained to overcome the initial resistance. And that can be changed, starting today, not with promises, but with one specific, consistent, simple action, repeated daily like a ritual that doesn't need emotional backup. It's not the major milestones that build resilience, but how you treat each small step along the journey. Every time you complete something, no matter how small, like waking up on time, resisting procrastination, finishing a single page, or stepping into the gym when you least feel like it, that's a victory. And if you don't learn to celebrate those victories, you'll soon lose the quiet fire within. Humans are not programmed to only feel joy at the finish line. We're activated by progress when we sense we're heading in the right direction, improving, growing, bit by bit. But if you don't pause to acknowledge that, your brain won't register it. It will assume your efforts are invisible and gradually withdraw its biochemical support. You're not tired from the work. You're tired from not feeling that what you do matters. Gratitude for the process is what keeps you going. Not for complacency, but to nourish your self-respect. It's the quiet voice in your head every time you complete a task saying, "I did it, I deserve to recognize my effort." This is mental fuel no one else can give you but yourself. That's why you need small celebration rituals. Not flashy, not exaggerated, but enough to make you feel you're growing. Remember, rewards don't have to be grand. A favorite cup of coffee after 90 minutes of deep work. A song you love after finishing a tough task. A few slow breaths to recognize what you just overcame. These simple rituals are emotional punctuation marks that help your brain record progress as something worth repeating. From there, you start anticipating positive actions instead of avoiding them. Without celebrating progress, you'll always feel you're not good enough. Always chasing the next goal without ever feeling satisfied. Always telling yourself, only when I achieve X do I deserve happiness. But that mindset will drain you because you'll live your entire life feeling lacking, when in fact, you've already come so far. Change your frame of reference. Don't just ask, how far do I still have to go? Ask instead, how far have I already come? Don't let the journey become torture. Make it a meaningful transformation by acknowledging the small things you're doing right. This recognition isn't something you beg from others. It's a gift you give yourself every day. And don't confuse gratitude with leniency. You can be grateful while still demanding more of yourself. You can celebrate without losing sight of your long-term goals. In fact, those who achieve sustainable success have one thing in common. They know how to create small moments of happiness, repeated daily, to keep their minds energized for the fight ahead. Because if you only live for the grand moments, you'll miss all the small but decisive ones. And the truth is, your life isn't shaped by 5 unforgettable moments, but by 5,000 quiet ones, where you kept going even when no one saw. So if there's someone who deserves to be honored, it's you. No need for a stage. Just know that you've done better than yesterday. The habit of recognizing progress also protects you from the comparison trap. When you're grateful for yourself, you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You stop looking sideways to see who's moving faster. You look inward to see how much deeper you're going. And when you live with that kind of gratitude, you're not swept into the race. You stand firm in your own rhythm. You can start today. Write down 3 things you did right, no matter how small. Not to brag, but to remind yourself, I'm on the right path. Create a small corner on your desk with a self-acknowledgement card, a quote, a tiny symbol, a positive glance. These little things might not change the world, but they'll change how you step into it each day. No one knows how much inner resistance you had to overcome to sit here and read these lines. No one understands what you had to give up to keep living true to your values. But you do. And that's why you deserve to celebrate. Not because you've arrived, but because you're no longer running away from the path. Every journey is filled with sweat and doubt, but if you pause to acknowledge yourself, you'll go further, last longer, and go deeper. Because in the end, it's not the fastest who wins, it's the one who stays grounded and knows how to honor every step they take. Ordinary people act when they feel inspired. Exceptional people act as if they've already become the ideal version of themselves. That's the defining difference that shapes outcomes. You don't need motivation to change. You need to act as if you've already changed. Most people live trapped in a faulty cycle, waiting to feel good before starting. But good feelings don't come on their own. They are the result of consistent, intentional action. And if you keep waiting until you feel ready, you're putting your destiny in the hands of an unstable emotional state. Motivation is a feeling, action is a decision. And it is your decisions that design the person you become. Picture the version of yourself you aspire to be. Disciplined, focused, influential, ethical, poised. Now ask yourself, what would that person do right now? Then do exactly that. No need to wait for the mood to align, no need to talk yourself into it, just act. Every right action is a statement to your nervous system, I am that person. Not someday, now. Transformation doesn't happen through admiration. It starts with active embodiment. You can't just sit and dream of becoming someone without living like them. You can't become strong while continuing to act weak. You can't become focused if your will is still easily scattered by fleeting emotions. If you want to live a different life, you must begin to think, speak, and act like someone already living that life. The beautiful truth is, your brain doesn't distinguish between emotional imagination and actual experience. If you repeatedly act like someone with elevated qualities, you are rewriting yourself at the neural level. This isn't fake, it's training your nervous system into the version you choose. And you must choose without negotiation. Don't just say, I want to be disciplined. Live as the embodiment of discipline, punctual, consistent, excuse-free. Don't say, I want to be confident. Walk, speak, and decide like someone who already has confidence flowing through their veins. You don't need anyone's permission to become what you crave. You just need to start living as if it's already true. At first it will feel unnatural. You'll feel like you're acting. That's right. Every evolution begins with adopted behavior. There's nothing wrong with acting as long as you're acting better than your former self, you're moving in the right direction. Don't wait for external validation. Every day you take another step, you shorten the gap between who you are now and who you want to be. And then something magical happens. When you live as if, you start to feel as if. You begin to believe you are capable. Belief is born from action, not from internal pep talks. Keep doing the right thing, even if you don't believe it yet. And belief will follow. Because when you consistently behave with elevated standards, your subconscious will adapt to match what you repeatedly demonstrate. Successful people don't have more motivation than you. They just act without needing motivation. They don't wait for a bright Sunday morning to start writing a book. They don't wait for inspiration from others to go to the gym. They don't need the world's understanding to live by their values. They act as if they already are who they want to become and let time and consequences do the rest. You don't need motivation. You need a new identity. And the only way for that identity to become real is to act in alignment with it. Repeat until your nervous system no longer reacts in old patterns. Repeat until others begin to notice you've changed. Repeat until you surprise yourself with your new reflexes. If today you feel tired, uninspired, or low, don't ask, should I do this? Ask, what would my ideal self do right now? Then do that. Action doesn't wait for motivation. Action creates motivation. And repeated action creates a new self. Grounded, proactive, and trustworthy to your own word. There won't be fireworks to signal the moment you start living differently. No one will applaud when you reject procrastination for the 10th time. No one knows the internal battle it took for you to wake up just 15 minutes earlier. But those very moments are the beginning of a silent revolution, one where you're not overthrowing the world around you, but dismantling every limit within yourself. No one can see what's happening inside you, but you know. You can feel each subtle shift like a quiet current running through you. You know you're no longer the person you used to be, not because you shouted it out or made grand declarations, but because you act differently, think differently, decide differently. You are rebuilding your life, not loudly, not for show, not for recognition, 1 second at a time, one habit at a time, one thought at a time. True revolution doesn't come from brief explosions of change, but from tiny shifts repeated with such unwavering consistency that they become irreversible. It's when you no longer need to resist your old bad habits because they simply have no space in your system anymore. It's when you no longer need to hype yourself up because you've become someone who runs on inner rhythm. Each right decision today silently lays a brick in the foundation of your beliefs, your reflexes, your character. But because it all happens quietly, you're likely to undervalue it. You'll doubt yourself. You'll feel like you haven't come far. You'll start looking for signs outside. Has anyone noticed me? Does anyone see that I've changed? Will anyone acknowledge this effort? And when nothing is obvious, you'll start to question. But the truth is, every solid revolution begins in silence. Every major victory is born from a series of unseen, unshared wins. You don't need the world's praise to know you're advancing. You just need to look in the mirror and see. Today, your gaze holds more resolve than yesterday. Your posture carries more presence than before. Your responses have more clarity. Your way of facing challenges is a little calmer. That alone is enough to prove. You are rebuilding yourself from the inside out, 1 second at a time. You might not see the change because you're living inside it every day, but look back at yourself from 3 months ago. That behavior, that mindset, that energy, do you really want to go back? If the answer is no, then congratulations, you are in the midst of a revolution. It may not be loud enough for the world to notice, but it's stable enough that you'll never want to return to who you were. Real transformation doesn't need an audience. It needs quiet daily commitment. It needs you to keep promises to yourself when no one's watching. It needs you to say no to what once weakened you without anyone clapping. It needs you to do hard things without deadlines, without reminders. It needs you to uphold your standards when no one would know if you let them slip. That is the silent revolution where you become the most trustworthy person in your own life. Others don't think major change happens all of a sudden. It's the outcome of thousands of moments when you chose right over easy. And never underestimate the power of those moments. Just one right decision in a moment of weakness can shift the entire timeline of your life. Just one refusal to give in can redirect your entire future. Don't wait for someone to tell you you've changed. You know it better than anyone. And the truth is, you don't need recognition to stay on the path. It's precisely because no one sees how silently strong you've become that you are now unshakable. People like you, who rebuild themselves through sheer will, are never again easily dragged back into the past. Because you know your life wasn't built by accident, but by thousands of chosen seconds. And if anyone asks you your secret, you don't need to explain in detail. Just smile and say, I simply did the right thing repeatedly, without bragging and without stopping. That is how you create a true revolution, not on social media, but in every vein, every thought, every reflex of your being. It is a change that can't be copied, can't be stolen, and that no one can give you except yourself. Continue to keep going. No applause needed, no noise required, no validation necessary. You're on the right path. And you're building something that no one can ever take away from you. A solid inner foundation forged through silence, persistence, and unwavering self-loyalty.